In this video, the second of 3 today, we will learn 7 more hiragana characters. Yes, we're learning them at a quick rate, so it's very important that you study them daily so you don't fall behind. Our first character in this video is So. There's a bit of debate with how many strokes So takes. That's partly because of the two most common fonts. The one thing on which they all agree is that all the strokes come to full stops. With the font you find on license plates, it is at least 2 strokes. Stroke 1 is that first short stroke in the upper left. And then the rest of the character is the stroke. It zigzags down across the character from the upper right back to the lower right. And here is where there's some argument. Some people argue that this last arc here is actually a 3rd stroke. To me, it doesn't matter. 3 strokes, 2 strokes, it'll look the same. And then we have this font here. Notice that they connect stroke 1 to the top of stroke 2, making the entire character 1 stroke. It really doesn't matter which form of So you use. You literally have 3 choices, all of which are acceptable. For our purposes, we'll choose the 2-stroke version. So let's do this together. Stroke 1 is a short stroke that slants down to the right. Stroke 2 starts above and to the right of stroke 1 and zigzags down across the character back down to the bottom right and stops. So, this character is easy to remember if you think about sewing a zigzag stitch. Does anyone sew anymore? If you don't, what's a better way to remember this? Our next character is To. It is 2 strokes. The first stroke starts in the upper left and slants down to the right. Notice this is a bit longer than the first stroke of So. The second stroke starts in the upper right, slants down to the left, but quickly turns back to the right. And both these strokes stop. So let's go ahead and try this one together. Stroke 1, slanting down to the right. Stroke 2 goes down to the left, but quickly turns back to the right and stops. To. Quick question. Have you ever had a thorn stuck through your toenail? I haven't, but I'll bet it hurts. Can you think of a less painful way to remember To? Na has 4 strokes. Stroke 1 is, you guessed it, the horizontal stroke. I'll bet you'll never guess the second stroke, the vertical one. Both of these things stop. The 3rd stroke is that small stroke you see above the 4th stroke. It usually ends in a hook. Notice that this font doesn't use a hook, but it usually ends in a hook as you move your brush to the 4th stroke, which is just that quick curlicue. Notice it looks like the bottom of the Ha, Ho, and Ma characters. So a note about that hook on stroke 3. As usual, some fonts don't use that hook, like the one I'm using here, or this one here. Some of them do, like this one here. And some of them take that hook even further and connect it to the 4th stroke. So there are several different ways that you might see Na printed. Don't get confused, just use your imagination and put them all together. So let's go ahead and try this all by our lonesomes, or together. So our first stroke is the horizontal stroke. The second stroke is the vertical stroke. Our 3rd stroke goes down and hooks. Notice I created the hook. And our 4th stroke does the curlicue. Na. To remember this one, you might think of a dude smiling because he's just tied a knot in his rope with one hand. That's not really that good. Can you think of something better? Here is Mo. Which stroke do you think go first? Obviously the horizontal. Wrong! Mo is an exception to the rule. Our first stroke is actually the hook. Notice this looks a lot like she. And then our 2nd and 3rd strokes are the horizontal strokes. So stroke 1 tails, strokes 2 and 3 come to full stops. Kind of strange, isn't it? Sorry. But let's do this together. Our first stroke is the big hook. It comes up to a tail. And our second stroke is horizontal, as well as the third one. Mo. Just remember that you can catch mo fish if you use mo worms. You don't fish? Think of something better. Ya is 3 strokes. Stroke 1 is the horizontalish stroke that curves back kind of like a hook. It ends in a tail. Stroke 2 is the higher, shorter of the 2 verticalish strokes. It usually ends in a hook. Stroke 3 is the longer stroke that crosses over the first at a right angle and stops at the bottom about halfway across the box. You will notice here that there are 2 different fonts displaying ya. The second font in gray connects strokes 2 and 3. Please keep in mind that ya is 3 strokes, so when we do it together, I'm going to put a hook on the second stroke. Stroke 1 is the hook stroke that's kind of horizontal. Stroke 2 is short and ends in a hook. And stroke 3 goes down through stroke 1 and stops. Ya. This character looks kind of like a yak. A yak? I myself would pronounce that word yak. There definitely has to be a better way to remember this character. This is yo. It is 2 strokes, and it follows the rules, so the first stroke is the horizontal stroke. The second stroke is the same curl we've seen in a lot of our other characters. Both of the strokes stop. Again, you will notice that we have 2 fonts here displaying 2 different ways that yo might appear. In the light gray, the second line actually goes through the first line, but please don't do that. Stroke 2 should barely graze stroke 1. So let's try this together. Stroke 1 starts in the middle but just above center of the box, and stroke 2 goes down and does a curlicue. It also stops. Yo. When you look at this character, do you see a yo-yo tied to your finger? Maybe you see something better than that to help you memorize it. Our next character is ro. It kind of looks like the number 3, but it's 2 strokes. The first stroke is the 7th stroke, like in wa, only it's higher in the middle of the box and bigger. And the second stroke is like the 3rd stroke of wa, only flatter. So let's go ahead and try this. Stroke 1 looks like a 7. Stroke 2 starts where stroke 1 ended and curves around into a gentle tail. Ro. I love driving in the mountains. There's this one particular part where I grew up that there are 3 sharp turns in the road. But those really are sharp turns. Maybe you can think of something better there. Now we have covered all the characters in this video, but just a quick look at characters with the dakuten. Can you guess which ones? If you realized that to and so are in the ta and sagyo, then you are correct. So, if we take to and add those dakuten, we'll get do. And if we take so and add the dakuten, we get zo. Okay, so now let's take a look at our whole hiragana table again, and voila! These are the characters that we have learned. Oh my goodness, we're filling up this table fast. Please do not fall behind. Also remember that we have the dakuten and han dakuten table, and these are the sounds that we have learned on this table. This one's almost full. As you can see, it's important to study daily. If you get behind, you'll find the course very difficult. So take some time to review these characters and start memorizing them. The third video today will actually introduce some katakana characters.